Oh boy. I can't wait to talk about Blade Runner with Lucy.
I got fat.
Yes, you did. Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about Blade Runner. I've invited my good friend, Miles, to join us. You will be seeing him in the future because he is a smart individual. So usually for the first time, for your first time on the show, I'll just explain how I usually do the intro. I know you've already drawn something, so I'm not going to ask you to erase it. But on a scale of 1 to 10, you can just write any number. Scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this movie? So you rate it, and then we're just going to show each other on 3.
Out of like my all-time favorite movies?
Out of 10. If you were to like grade this movie on a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'm kept
That's just gonna
on 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
8.5.
Hey, I did an 8, and also I like your drawing of the man crying.
Roy Batty.
Roy Batty, yeah.
And Deckard's pistol.
Yeah, wonderful.
Shooting.
Absolutely. This is why he's going to be a reoccurring guest. We can't have his talent.
Does the camera even read it? I don't. Think it does.
I'm sure it doesn't, but I love it anyway. We can, if you want, you can put it right up to the frame if you want.
I'll be really awkward about it.
Do it.
Just
Oh, yeah.
over the...
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, that's hot.
All right.
Perfect. Okay, sweet. Well, we've got our ratings out of the way. This is something I also like to do. If you could describe this movie in either one word or one phrase, what word or phrase would you use?
Oh, do I have to write that?
You know what?
I can't just say it.
Let's just say it. That's a good idea. This is why we're bringing you on.
Like tears in the rain.
It's hot. That's good. That's good.
All these moments. Actually, I would use the full quote. Not full quote. Partial quote. Half of a full quote. All these moments lost in time. Like tears in the
Tears
rain.
in the rain, baby. It's good. Man, I thought about this.
Oh god, these erasers suck.
I think Dilution. If you use the bottom of this.
Oh, does that work better?
Yeah, it works way better.
Oh, it's just a magnet. Is that why?
I don't know. I don't know what phrase I would use, but probably identity
Skin job.
might be. Well, yeah, there's one of them. Yeah, but I think identity would be the word I decide to use for this one. But anyway, we can go into it. First, right off the bat, which cut did you watch?
Yeah, I was actually wanting to ask you which one you watched.
So I looked on everything to see where this was streaming.
Okay.
Oh look, the cat's in the frame.
Cat's in the frame.
I keep but the only place I could find it was I could rent it on Amazon or I could rent
Yeah.
it on YouTube. So I rented it on YouTube because I
Okay.
just decided to, and it was the theatrical cut.
Oh, okay. So you got the theatrical.
I got
watched-
theatrical.
I watched director's cut because that's the superior
Yep,
version.
that's what I've heard.
I'm glad we did that at the same time because you're gonna have to edit that out.
That's okay.
I burped and you sneezed.
We'll
so that
figure it
was
out.
pretty good. Yeah, I watched the director's cut because like that was supposedly like what the director had.
Yeah, that's
envisioned
what
for
Ridley
it.
Scott wanted.
And I think there's like 5 versions that came.
There's
out.
like 17.
Yeah,
it's kind
it's
of ridiculous
insane
how many versions there are.
So I'm glad we watched pretty good version.
It was good. So, I mean, at least we'll be able to compare and contrast. But I
So-
did watch the theatrical version.
Okay.
And you watched, what was it, director's cut. So
Director's
there's
cut.
probably stuff, because I did some research, so I know what's in the director's cut and
Do
everything.
you know? Okay, so you know of the unicorn. scene.
Yep. And,
Yeah. Okay.
We'll, we'll get into that a little bit later. So, let's just get into the plot. Do you wanna go over the plot or me?
Yeah, you go for the plot.
Okay, so-
you kick us off.
Plot in the year, was it 2019? Far off distance future,
far distant
2019. There are these.
Keep in mind, this movie was made in 1982.
Yeah, something like that.
And the director's cut came out in 87.
Okay.
So mine, I don't know. I'm assuming yours would be 82. Since
Yeah, because it was
theatrical.
the theatrical, so I imagine it would be.
So, 3 years, that's a lot of time to...
Yeah, to edit and
Edit and
add
change.
and put. Yeah.
But
Oh, Ridley. But okay, so plot is, what is it? 2019. There are things called replicants that the Tyrell company has made, which are basically identical to humans, except they have like enhanced speed, agility, all that. So they're like
they're
humans,
stronger,
but
yeah.
they're better, and they're used for dangerous jobs, so slave labor essentially. They went rogue, or a group of them went rogue, killed like 24 people, and then they were deemed too dangerous to live, so Blade Runners were made as basically hired assassins to take them out.
the FBI.
Yeah, to take them out and to neutralize the threat, essentially. So that's where the title Blade Runner comes from. The plot really is just it's like a classic noir. This old detective is brought out of retirement to do one last job, and he was an ex-Blade Runner. He's been brought back to take out an elite team of these replicants who were used for combat purposes.
One of them was used for combat.
Yeah, one of them was used for combat purposes.
One of them, Pris, was used for
other
entertainment
things, yes.
purposes, if you get what I mean. Wink,
But
wink,
he's
nudge,
basically brought back to take down these replicants, and we watch everything unfold. So that's basically the plot.
nudge. Replicants also only have a 4-year lifespan.
Yes, the
And-
built-in fail-safe for the 4 years.
And that'll come back later on as we start to talk about more and more. Essentially, these 4 replicants were working on... So, another huge part of this entire universe is that they are using these replicants as slave labor on Mars to mine for minerals and stuff like that, and also set up colonies on Mars and other planets. And there's like this huge revolt. They kill as many as they can, and that's why Blade Runners were becoming a thing, was to end that sort of thing.
Okay.
And so, fuck, I'm forgetting his name. Deckard. Good
Deckard.
Lord, man.
It's okay.
Holy crap.
Harrison Ford.
Harrison Ford, good old Harrison Ford. He specifically brought out of retirement to hunt these 4 that have run away from one of the colonies.
Because he was the best.
Because
he was the best.
He's the best of the best.
He's the best of the best.
So
It's
I did-
classic noir. You're
I
the
did-
best of the best. Get back in
I
here.
did make a note in this saying that like it falls into that classic cliche.
Oh yeah,
of,
there's a
like,
lot of cliches.
I know you're
we'll go
retired,
over.
but you gotta come
we're bringing
back
you
for
back
this
on the
last
horse.
job,
Yeah,
man.
exactly. You're the only one, Deckard.
You're the only one who's trained well enough to hunt these
exactly.
bastards down.
So, real quick before we get more into it, I want to play a little game with you. So, Ridley Scott is one of those directors I have a love-hate relationship with. And so, I see a lot of the same themes in his movie. And during my watch, there was a lot of similarities I saw between this and a lot of Alien movies. I'm mostly referring to the original Alien, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant.
Okay.
If we're going over something and it makes you draw a mental connection between themes or whatever between it, these are a bunch of nickels. If every time Ridley Scott did something like this in his film, I would get a nickel. So I'm just gonna put this right here, and we'll just keep adding it to the little nickel jar as we're going through this. But I want to see how many that we collectively get. Okay, so I'll have you start off. What are some themes in this movie that you enjoyed?
Yeah, individuality. That's something that I actually thought was kind of unique in this movie. 2049 is a whole other can of worms.
I've yet to see that one. I really want
Okay.
to see it.
I think 2040. God, you should have watched it.
I know.
before this.
I might watch it
You're
tonight.
You're backing me into a pen here, man.
Sorry.
To talk about one is to ignore the other.
Ignore it for now. I know. I'm sorry.
400,000, really? Anyways, so individuality. The whole first scene, like the whole first 5 minutes of this movie, where Leon is brought in, and the first Blade Runner, I forget his name,
Yeah.
is interviewing him. it's a really iconic scene of the entire franchise. It's when he's first figuring out whether this guy is a replicant or not. It shows I think there's like an actual name for it, but there's like that whole test that he goes through, checking if he's on baseline or if he's totally off of baseline. Which, God, you're killing me that you haven't seen 2049.
Sorry.
That's a whole thing in 2049, obviously. If you've seen it, you know. That scene of figuring out, you know, is this individual a replicant or not? Is he part of this group or not? You can't tell, just in general, what this thing is unless you really dig into it.
Yeah, and the questions he asks, too, are just so... not outlandish, but just like he talks about like you're in a desert and a tortoise comes up to you and it can't get off its back.
Yes.
Like, how does this make you feel?
Yeah.
And it's these like weird, like
it's gauging,
psychological kind of questions.
Yeah, it's gauging whether or not you're going to give an emotional response.
Yeah.
And that's something that's just kind of touched on in the original Blade Runner, is just the fact that like using those emotional responses against a robot is something, but yet throughout the entire movie we're shown that these robots, these synthetic beings, can still have some form of emotional response. I mean, especially, God, the whole last half hour of the movie.
Oh yeah.
Like,
well, you have not synthetics, replicants.
Yeah.
They show emotions, like they have attachments. Like Roy has an attachment to Pris, yeah. And then Leon, he seemed to have an emotional response when Deckard shot down that other replicant.
Yeah.
So it's just like
Lisa, I think it was.
Yeah, something like that. The Snake Lady.
Yeah, Snake Lady. Snake Lady.
But you can tell that these replicants, like, there's more underneath the surface. Like, they're not just robots. And this movie does a lot of playing around with that idea that they have more identity to them than just being made for slave labor.
Just like Alien.
Oh, there you go. Another thing I want to add is what I love that Ridley Scott does is he doesn't explain any of this. He just drops you in the world.
Yeah.
Which is another thing in Alien, you just wake up and you're introduced in the world. You learn as you go.
Yeah.
But they start off I think the first scene is like, you know, they introduce the world. There's all these factories that are shooting fire in the air, and there's this close up on this eye, which eyes are a huge thing in this movie.
Yes. Yeah.
And then they straight into the interrogation scene, and you as the viewer are like, what is going on?
Exactly.
And he drops you right into it, and that's a classic Ridley Scott move.
Exactly.
He doesn't really, he just lets you live in this world for a minute.
Yeah. He like you said, eyes are incredibly important throughout this whole movie.
Yeah. And I think sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but eyes, I was thinking about it last night, but eyes are the window to the soul.
Yeah.
And so I think that theme runs throughout, like, because the replicants are seen as just like, you know, tools, basically. And and as like, you know, these empty vessels, and there's a lot of like, I mean, there's the scene with the toys in them, and then there's a lot of mannequins, and so like they're seen to not have souls, and their eyes are different. So I just wanted to put that out. So anytime we talk about eyes throughout this, is like, there's like a deeper meaning to that, like whether you have a soul or not, and that dictates your value in this world.
Right. Eyes are incredibly important in this movie, and 2049, man.
Yeah, I'll get around to it. I'll get around to it. I swear. I
don't mean to keep coming back.
He's
to that,
literally me.
It's he's literally me. Well, so the grand question to this movie is kind of presented as: is Deckard human? Is Deckard truly
and
human?
that's all the way at the end. We'll get into that. I like to think he's not, but that's.
You think he's not?
Okay. So Ridley Scott says he is. I think the movie works better if he's not. But we can get more into that a little bit later.
You're a monster.
I don't think I am.
When you watch, God,
you're
killing me. You're killing me.
They're just sticking with Blade Runner.
Okay. God,
I know.
Really killing me.
I know it. But
Okay.
okay, you go.
You go. You go.
I was gonna say some other themes I noticed is what does it mean to be human?
Yeah.
That's a theme that
Yeah.
runs throughout. Delusion's a theme. Like a lot of this setting and everything is just like everything's just kind of mixed in together, and I'll kind of get more into that. Fear, finding your humanity, wanting freedom, not being used as a tool or as a mechanism for someone else's goals, and then the promise of a better life. So those are some themes that I
Yeah,
picked
yeah.
up on that I think
Absolutely.
this movie does a pretty good job at kind of putting some dressing on it.
Yeah, and kind of going back to like, you know, is talking about what is having a soul, what is humanity. That is like a huge part of this entire franchise.
Yeah.
Is like, well, you know, are we only human because we have our own memories? Are we only human because we can retain those memories? Are we human simply because we declare ourselves that? You know, what is humanity? And that is true in both movies. Is, you know, are we merely human because we can claim ourselves that? What does it mean to have a miracle happen? And what does it mean to witness a miracle happen?
Yeah, like it's a lot of like these really heavy, lofty themes.
Yeah.
That's very. The only word I can really think about it is like sci-fi.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sci-fi themes that really get into like the humanity and the ethical side of actual stuff, which is another thing that I noticed was a thing with Alien Covenant. It's like these very lofty, high themes. But you know, talk about more about that later.
There we go.
Anyway, let's get into some of the characters.
Why am I putting coins in for
Well, but yeah, you're closer.
you? Yeah, okay, fair. Talking about characters. So, like we said, Leon, the initial interviewee that we see, he's the first of the replicants that we're introduced to.
Yep.
And going into this movie blind, like if you don't know anything about this movie, when he's first introduced, you think your first thought is like, this guy's a nobody. Like he's just a
I
construction
think
worker.
he was like introduced as like a waste disposal.
Yeah,
Versus
yeah.
like a trash man,
Yeah, yeah.
basically.
Real. You kind of see him as like real low intelligence because the guy starts like rattling off an address, and the first thing the guy says is, "Oh, that's where I live."
Yeah.
He goes, "What?" It's like, "That address, that's where I live." And it's like, okay, it's not really part of the interview stuff. I'm just taking notes for myself here as I go. And he's just kind of constantly like this slack-jawed kind of look to him.
Yeah.
Of like, he's not all there. He's just kind of like in the moment sort of thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting because later on in the movie, when he sees Deckard, he's just this absolute killing machine.
Yeah, he's got that anger and
Yeah, and he uses it to his fullest capacity.
yeah. When he's first introduced, it seems like he's like almost nervous because like almost every question the interviewer asks or the Blade Runner asks, he's just like, what do you mean by that? What's a tortoise? What are you talking about? Like what?
Never seen a tortoise.
Yeah, and so kind of defensive, kind of like, but it's a cool introduction because he seems normal enough.
Yeah.
And then, you know, I think he asks him about his mother
Yeah.
or something like that, which
Yeah.
is kind of tied to some of the themes of where are you from? Where do you come from? And that's a big theme that is also hit on. And he goes like, I'll tell you about my mother, and then he just kills him in cold blood.
Yeah.
And it's a cool introduction
Yeah.
of kind of like,
It's because he can't tell him.
yeah,
about his mother.
what the fuck is this about?
What is this? Yeah, and I love the part where he just throws the guy through a wall.
Yeah.
Just lobs him across
Yeah,
the room.
really just
like it's nothing.
Slams through him, yeah.
It's pretty great. It's pretty great. Not only from like a visual effects sort of style,
Yeah.
but also just like him just getting up and flinging this guy like he's nothing.
Yeah.
Really makes
was-
you go, oh, these replicants are scary.
Yeah, like really strong.
Yeah, yeah.
I was gonna say, with the theatrical version, I think he just shoots him and he goes
Yeah, yeah.
through the wall. I don't think he picks
Oh
her
yeah,
up.
that's right. The
Yeah.
gun flings him.
Yeah.
That's right.
But to backpack on that, the introduction of Deckard, and I hear this is not a thing in the director's cut. There's a lot of voiceover in the theatrical cut. So you have Harrison Ford, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently the theatrical cut has a lot of voiceover, and the director's cut doesn't.
Yeah.
So like he's just like, yeah, they don't post a lot of my jobs in the newspaper.
Because we still use newspapers in 2019.
Murderer or something like that.
Yeah.
And according to this, fun fact, apparently Ridley Scott didn't want voiceovers, and neither did Harrison Ford, because they just thought it was better to be ambiguous.
Yeah.
Which, if I had a nickel for every time Ridley Scott likes being ambiguous. The producers of the movie, they watched the movie, and they thought, the audience isn't going to know what the fuck is going on, so we've got to have voiceover to give exposition to let people know. Exactly, that kind of mentality. And so apparently they called back Harrison Ford to do the lines, and he didn't want to do the lines, so he did them as unenthusiastically as possible, and they're bad.
There's a reason why the
And
director.
exactly. And like he did them bad on purpose in the hopes that they wouldn't use them.
Yeah.
But they used
used
them.
them.
So
They put
in the
them in.
theatrical cut, the theatrical version, when he started doing the voiceover, because I think this is my first time I've ever even seen the theatrical version.
Yeah.
I watched it and I was just like,
This sucks.
okay, like it adds to like it's a classic noir trope to have that voiceover and the character self-narrating and stuff, and like that part I could see it working, but just it was so unenthusiastic, and the dialogue was clearly not written by the same writers.
Like that would walk into a dingy place.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's just
Absolutely terrible.
It's just it's real bad. So throughout the
Yeah.
movie, there's just those lines of just like, my wife called me a dead fish or something like that. And you're like, what are you talking about, Harrison? What are you saying?
What is going on here? Yeah, so in the director's cut, you don't get any of those.
Yep,
You don't
yeah,
get any voiceover stuff,
Leave
which
it
is great.
sweet, ambiguous.
You are dropped in without a clue. You're not given any other clues other than context as to what has happened, what's going on, where he's going, where he's been. You are having to piece this together as he's going.
Yes.
Which is fantastic.
Which is nice. It's like the opposite of the fish out of water trope, where you have a character who doesn't know what the world is and you learn it through their lens. It's like the opposite. You have this grizzled character that's been living in this world for too long.
Yeah.
And you have to follow them out. And you kind of have to do a little detective work of yourself of like, what is going on? And you have to pick up on things. And it's nice. It keeps you engaged.
Absolutely. It's fish out of water dying because it has no water.
Yeah.
As opposed to the director's cut, which is fish out of water thriving because it is raining so hard in this damn city.
Yep.
Which
Yep.
It is raining all the time.
Which is great. Which is another kind of
fantastic.
noir thing where it's always
it's
always damp and it's
It's
so
just
lived
this
in.
dingy feeling.
Yep.
which is
Exactly.
Exactly what they were going for.
The visuals of this movie are phenomenal. Which if I had a nickel for every time Ridley Scott was great at atmosphere.
I'm saving a couple of mine.
Yeah, it's good. I got a couple.
Because I want to talk about props. As
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And there's quite a few parallels and comparisons.
I would agree the miniatures used, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But while we're on characters, we'll get a little more into Deckard. I want to start with smaller characters, and then we can get into Deckard and Roy, because they're the big characters who have the big arcs.
Yeah.
What is it? We talked about Leon, Prim?
Pris.
Pris.
I hate Pris.
She doesn't have too much of a character arc, but
I
she's
hate her.
one of the android or the replicants. I think Tyrell is an interesting
Edmund?
character.
Is it Edmund?
Yeah.
I
Talking
can't read
about-
that. Eldon Tyrell?
Yeah. He's cool. He's basically God in this movie.
Yeah.
And every time
That's-
you see him, he's in his white robes and he's
Religious
all-knowing.
undertones,
Yeah, he's
am I right?
exactly.
Much like Prometheus.
I was about to say, if I had a nickel for every time, there's some weird ass religious overtones in Ridley
mean,
Scott movies.
Ridley Scott. I think he's questioning his religious morals.
He really
all
likes
the time.
the question of what happens when the...
Am I God?
Well, yeah, he really likes questioning what happens when you meet your creator.
Yes.
He really likes that thing.
And what the repercussions of
Yep,
meeting
exactly.
your creator are.
Exactly. Or the consequences of acting as God.
Yeah.
He likes that theme.
Yeah.
I think he's an interesting character. He's played by a pretty cool guy. I like that he has these like thick glasses.
Yeah, he's got the thick Coke
He's got
bottle
these
glasses.
thick glasses, and he's accompanied
Yeah.
by an owl. An owl is, all-knowing wisdom
Yeah.
kind of thing.
It's also something he made.
Plus his yeah, true. That's
So-
something he made.
Something he made that is all-knowing, all-seeing.
Exactly. And whenever you go into this gets a little bit into set design, but when you go into his palace, essentially, he's the man in the high
Kingdom.
castle,
Yeah,
basically.
he's literally the man in the high castle.
Exactly. His floors
King
are
of the
all
castle, king of the castle.
his floor is all completely waxed. There's like reflection off of like it's so pristine
Yes, yeah.
and clear. And there's no water anywhere, but like the back of the backdrop on his walls have like that reflective, ethereal
that
kind of
shot,
thing.
Yeah, that shot of that dining table.
Yep.
And all of the
Yep.
blinds just
Coming
slowly
down.
closing. It's like
It's-
like the Garden of Eden
Exactly.
closing off to the rest of the world.
Exactly.
And I really think that that's done entirely on purpose.
Oh, yeah. No.
To really make you feel like, oh, this guy is
This part is it's completely disconnected from the rest of the world.
Absolutely,
Because
yeah.
every other scene is just this dilapidated, like, just forsaken kind of wasteland.
Yeah, yeah.
But his office is just so clean, and there's just
Perfect.
ooh, look at me. And then you can tell one of the parallels I really like is the chess sets that they play throughout.
Did you say a parallel?
A parallel. The what is it? What's the guy? The toy maker. He has a chess set, and it's all these like dingy, weird animal pieces.
Yeah.
And he's like queen to rook 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
And he says that to Tyrell, and then you see his chess set, and it's just like
It's like this immaculate.
it's like made of
marble
gold.
and
Yeah,
gold.
and it's just like it's a cool little parallel between his world and the other world, and how he still affects the
Yes,
world, but he doesn't
yeah.
have to leave his house.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's nice. It's a cool little
It's
thing.
a really cool contrast
Yeah.
between the two, which is really nice to see. And then, along with him, is Rachel.
Oh, Rachel.
Oh, Rachel, our Mother Mary.
Yeah, she's cool. I don't know. You give me your take on Rachel. I have mixed feelings.
She's a slut.
Damn, destroyed.
Hard. No, so Rachel's really interesting to me because, again, going back to the religious undertones, she is Mother Mary.
Yeah.
Like, she is supposed to be that iconography.
Yeah.
Because in 2049, it is well established that, like, she had a kid
Okay.
and that she is one of the only known replicants to have ever carried a child.
Okay.
Especially a child from assumed human male.
Yes.
And so, like, that's a huge plot point of 2049 is that this new guy, I'm sorry if I'm spoiling shit for you, but
It's
I feel
okay.
like I can't.
It's okay.
I
It's
can't
okay.
hide it
Just go with
anymore,
it.
man.
Just go with it.
Go ahead, talk about it.
Go with it, man.
And so in 2049, the villain's whole thing is like, I need to recreate that. We are having so many new replicant orders that I have to do this in order to expand my empire.
Okay.
And so his focus has shifted from perfecting this life that he has created to now being, I've perfected life so much, I don't care about continuing to just build life. I want to create the creation of life. So once again, this godly person now thinking that they are stronger than God and trying to continue this motion. It's really interesting in that movie.
Okay.
So sorry.
Kind of getting a little
Spoilers.
kind
Spoilers.
of some. I mean, I haven't seen the movie, but kind of getting some David vibes from not Conjuring,
Go on.
Covenant.
There you go.
Woo!
We're getting there. So
But Rachel, she's. I mean, as someone who hasn't seen 2049 yet, she's an interesting character. I think her performance is really well. Apparently, her and Harrison Ford did not get along on set, so that's
Really? Oh, I
yeah.
didn't know that.
Apparently, they didn't get along on set, and apparently, him and Ridley Scott don't really get along either.
I mean,
You know.
I hear that a lot about
Ah,
Ridley
you
Scott.
know.
I
Yeah,
think it's kind of
exactly.
Ridley Scott more than
Yeah,
Harrison
he's
Ford.
a perfectionist.
Harrison Ford, I love you if you ever see this.
Yeah, Harrison Ford, please. I love you.
I would do anything for you, my king, my liege.
Exactly. He's literally me.
He's literally me.
But what is it? She is more. She doesn't really go through a character. Well, she goes through like a mini character arc, but she really is there as like a really good supporting character for Deckard,
Yes.
and realizing, and this is one reason why I like it more that he's not a replicant. I know it's on record, Ridley Scott, that he's a replicant, whatever. But I think it works better because Deckard's arc, and I'll just start getting into it now, is he starts the movie as completely removed from humanity, and he sees himself as a killer and someone who really can't be redeemed. He's lost his humanity, basically. And he meets this replicant, and through this replicant, he finds his humanity again. He begins to start to feel again. And I think that's really cool idea of this human, this natural-born human, who has lost his humanity, helps regain it through someone who's actually not considered human. And she's a really good supporting character for Deckard for that arc. I think it's pretty cool.
You're killing me.
I guess I am.
Because
I guess I am.
2049.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what we should have done. We should have had you watch.
I should have done a double
OG,
feature. I
and
should have
then
done
I
a double
should have done
feature.
2049, and then we would like go back
okay.
and forth. That's what we should.
That's
Notes
okay.
for next time.
We're learning.
We're
That's
learning.
how. Yeah, we're learning.
This is only the what?
the
Second,
third episode.
Third episode.
We're not far in, ladies and gentlemen.
We're babies. I'm just a baby.
Plus, nobody's gonna watch this other than my mom.
Yeah.
So
I don't watch it.
I don't either.
So, in 2049, it's interesting that you phrase it that way because in 2049, you're introduced to the main character Kay. Kay, I think it's Kay, who
Ryan Gosling.
Ryan Gosling,
I know who that is.
my real Lord. And
He literally is me.
He is literally me. He is established that he's a skin job. He is a replicant, and he is a replicant Blade Runner. He is a robot made to kill other non-functioning robots. And he has this amazing first introductory scene with David Bautista where David wrecks his shit. And it's really good. But throughout the whole movie, he's battling with this idea of, like, he's a replicant, but he feels like he's something more. And he, you know, at least when I first watched this movie, that's how I read it, is like, he feels like he's something more. He wants to be something
There's
more.
more underneath the surface.
And he believes he could be something more. And as he's finding these things out and doing his own investigation, I don't want to try and give too much away, but I do want to hit on these notes. As he gets towards the end, he realizes that, oh, I'm not human. But is my humanity from me or the actions that I take?
yeah,
Which
they hit on
I
a bit in
think-
this movie.
I think that's such a cool thing.
I was gonna say that's more, when you say that, that seems more like Roy's arc.
Right.
Roy's arc is he kind of starts the movie kind of the same as Deckard is. That's my roommate.
Oh, okay.
He starts the movie the same way as Deckard, as this cold, unfeeling, not machine, but like entity.
Yes.
That's
yeah,
just like going through the motions, and he only has one goal,
Yeah.
and he wants to meet Tyrell, and that is his only goal, and he'll do nearly anything to do it, no matter who he has to torture or kill or whatever. And by the end of the movie, he ends up saving Deckard, the man who took out all of his
All his
family
and
essentially.
friends,
and saves him because he wanted his last act to be an act of humanity. And so he kind of gains humanity at the end of it,
Right.
while knowing full well that he is a replicant and that the world will hunt him down for it.
Yeah, and not stop hunting him down.
Exactly.
And yeah, and I think that's perfect segue into that
Yeah.
because that is Roy's entire pursuit is he wants to achieve a longer life.
Yep.
And when he finds out that that's not possible, he accepts that his short life has to fizzle out this way.
Yep.
But he decides that his final actions should be to save humanity, save another human.
Exactly.
And that
To value life instead of take it.
exactly. And it's so cool.
And that's one thing that that's a big part of humanity,
Right.
is instead of taking life, you learn to save it, which is, it's, again, they're parallel. Deckard and Roy go through this kind of arc on opposite ends, but end up at the same place. Although Deckard, I guess his last interaction with a replicant is he runs away with her, and he
Yeah.
abandons, I think, Earth. They don't make it too clear, but he abandons everything for this person, and he wouldn't have done that at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Speaking of, while we're talking about both of them, that last scene in the movie is phenomenal. I really like all of it. One, they shot it in a gigantic hotel, so the set's
Yeah.
really cool.
Beautiful setting.
Yeah, and just
Beautiful-
the
beautiful
whole
job.
time, they turn its head because this entire time, Deckard, his whole life, he's been hunting replicants, and now a replicant
It's
is
hunting
hunting him, and he really, he's howling.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like this. He wants Deckard to feel
Fear.
just as afraid as he's felt basically the entire 4 years of his life.
Absolutely.
And it's a nice way to kind of turn the tables
Yeah.
on him and just kind of make it this huge like cat and mouse game, because for the whole movie Deckard's kind of been the cat running and getting these replicants, and every time he gets one, like it's a brutal death each
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And they don't sugarcoat it either. Like the first replicant he kills, it's that snake lady, and she's, what is it? She's gunned down while she's running away.
Well,
She
she's
shoots her in the back.
Yeah, she's trying to run away.
Yeah.
And then she crashes through a panel of glass like 5 times.
Yeah.
At least in the director's cut. That's
Yes, it's same thing in the
I'll
theatrical.
say that's like my one gripe with this movie. is
Ah,
that
it looks cool, so I'll take it.
They cut to that shot so many times.
Yeah.
And it's my first time watching it, I was like, okay, let's
She could have gone through 10. It looked cool.
that whole scene of him at the entertainment facility is really interesting because like you're seeing this like really cat and mouse game between them
Yep.
where he's trying to pry just enough information from her but also trying to stay undercover.
Yeah,
And she's already kind of
she's
half
a
a step
little
at foot at,
yeah.
you
She's
know.
like I've already been running my whole life. When a stranger pops up, I'm not just gonna be
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah,
you're cool.
exactly.
And also through their dialogue, a lot of the dialogue, it paints a bigger picture of the world. So he comes in as a humanitarian officer or
Yeah.
someone that works for like social services,
an
who's just like
artist, like,
who's just like,
officer.
hey, have you been like harassed or whatever? And she
Are
just
you
kind of
being
looks at him and goes like,
abused?
are you serious? Like that's
Like-
not even a job in this world. Like, are you serious?
come on.
Like nobody's actually
think
looking
it's-
out for me like that.
I think it's
and
more
then,
of a scoff of like, you really think I didn't have to blow a guy to get
yeah.
this job?
Well,
sort of thing?
there's that, and then he's just like, oh, you'd be surprised at what people would do to see a pretty lady, and she's like, no, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised. So it paints a little bit more of a picture of
I
like
know why you're here. Like,
exactly.
yeah.
And then the last part of the dialogue that I think speaks to how she feels and also how things are valued in this world is he asks her, is this a real snake? She goes, no. If it was a real snake, you think
wouldn't be
I
here."
wouldn't be here if I
Yeah.
could afford a real snake.
Yeah.
So that just implies that a real snake is worth so much in the eyes of everyone else that
Yeah,
it could
yeah.
literally get you off of this world.
Right.
But a replicant, they stay here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just like, it's cool. It just paints more of a bigger picture of how she views the world and how the world views her.
Right.
And it's just like, it's good dialogue. I like
Yeah.
it.
No, absolutely.
But what was it? She's the first death of the replicant.
She
After
is.
that, Leon
attacks.
comes up,
Deckard.
and he gets shot by Rachel.
Rachel, yeah, she comes out of nowhere and just blows him out from the back
Yep.
of the head. She gives him a back shot, and and so
and then
lest.
hey, I jest.
Lest. Yeah, Rachel comes out of nowhere to save the day.
It's kind of another film noir thing. The dame
I was gonna say
comes out of
that's-
nowhere.
That's like one thing that is just kind of like her only foil is like, I saved you.
Yeah.
You should really thank me. And I know that's not really what the movie's doing.
Yeah.
But it does feel that very noir, the dame came and saved me.
Yeah,
Good
when I
thing
needed
there wasn't
help.
another round
And-
loaded, otherwise she might have shot me
Yeah,
too.
and during that beatdown, what is it? I think Leon goes for Deckard's eyes.
Yeah, he's going
He's
to,
about
like,
to
gouge
gouge
the
them
eyes
out, and
Yeah,
she
yeah.
saves his eyes,
Yeah.
his soul, or
Yeah, his
whatever,
soul.
which is kind of their whole
Which is why he's a human.
deal. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. He's human.
I like the scene where they go back. Well, I don't even know if I want to talk about this scene. I like the beginning of the scene. It's kind of weird how it goes. I enjoy when, what is it? She's in the apartment and she's doing these everyday mundane things. Like she's just learned that she's a replicant.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and all of her memories are fake. Like
Yeah,
she
like
just
her
learned
world's
this.
flipped upside
Exactly.
down,
And so you see her do everyday things like take down her hair and whatever.
Yeah.
And there's just a lot of like a thought put into it where it's just like everything's different now, and these
Yeah.
mundane things that you want to give a second thought about
Yeah.
are like have so much weight behind them.
They're totally different.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
I like that scene. It's cool.
Yeah. No, it's an
The rest
interesting
of it's-
scene.
If I had a nickel for every time Ridley Scott did some weird sex stuff in his movies,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a little dated.
it is. It's dated.
I'll
It's.
say.
I like.
You don't-
I'm not even gonna get into it. Like it's just.
My parents would be like, that's just how it was
Yeah,
back in the
so-
80s. You just gotta grab them by the pussy and just have at it, man.
Exactly.
And I watch
it's-
that and I go,
Like I might cut this part out because I have no place to say. But I get what Ridley Scott was going for, but the execution is just like that's a little much.
It's
a little much.
it's a little much. I think what's trying to be conveyed is like Deckard's kind of taking this opportunity, one, to act on his desires, but also to show Rachel what those desires are. I keep hitting this. And it's
That's
annoying.
okay.
What those desires are and how it's natural to act on those desires.
Yes.
Because he's 1,000% guiding her through it.
Yeah, and she doesn't all of her memories are planted, so she's like, I don't know if my thoughts are even my own.
Right.
So like, how do I know I haven't been programmed to feel certain things?
Yeah.
So like, I understand what they're going for, but I was even listening to the commentary track because I was curious about this. I was like, okay, Ridley
Yeah.
Scott. Tell me what you think of this scene.
about this?
And he
Why
kind of
don't you
basically
justify
He
this?
basically says, but what I just said of just like, oh, she doesn't know what thoughts are her own. You know, he's like guiding her through it.
Right.
But he says he's like, but looking back on it, it was a little rough. We had like Harrison push her, and
Little risque.
it's a little rough. And I'm like, yeah, Ridley, it kind of is.
A little bit. I mean, to draw a parallel,
Oh, draw it. There it is.
the Alien was pretty rough on
Yeah.
some of them.
There's
too.
a lot of symbolism
There's
in
a
that movie.
lot
There's a
of-
lot
A
of symbolism.
lot of R word. I don't
Yes.
think we can say that.
Yeah,
on
let's
YouTube.
play it safe and not
So
say it, because I'm
we'll
pretty
skip
sure
that one.
YouTube will be like, don't say that.
Don't say it.
But if
There was
you've
a lot
you've
of
seen
that.
the scene, you know what we're talking
If you've
about.
seen Alien, you know. You know.
Oh, you know.
Oh, you know. You know.
That's basically what I wanted to talk about with characters. Do you have any other characters you want to talk about, or any of the arcs I want to go through?
I mean, Zara is the snake girl. Zara is
Zara.
the snake girl.
There you
That's her name. Roy is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I love
think
his
he's-
whole arc.
Yeah, I think he's a little more interesting than Deckard, which
Yes.
is not a bad thing, but
It's not.
he's really interesting.
It makes him a more compelling victim or villain. To me,
Villain,
rather,
victim, he's both.
because he is both.
Yeah.
And you feel like at the end of the movie, you feel a little more sympathetic for him because of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's partially why he's not really like the biggest character in the movie, but he's the one villain or bad guy that you kind of at the end of the movie you really do feel sorry. for.
You have empathy for this person that you've witnessed, murder people,
Yeah.
and it's cool to do, but you get it.
Yeah.
I think that's we could kind of go over the toy maker. He's more of a supporting character. We don't have to go over it.
What is it? ZF or SF?
Some Simon, I think.
Something.
I can't remember.
He's
It's
just
a cool allegory. I like that they pair the replicas next to dolls and toys and
Yeah.
things to be used. It's like, okay, I see what you're going for.
Yeah.
I see what you're going for.
The
How
shop.
all of these things look human and they can act human, but they don't, at the end of the day, have a soul.
Exactly. That shot of Deckard going through the
Yep.
toy maker's room.
She
and
fools
Pris,
him.
And Pris is just
Yeah.
sitting absolutely still.
Because he can't tell the difference.
Which is funny to me because he saw all of their mug shots before. But, whatever.
But she painted her
That's fine.
face.
Yeah, that, blackface does a lot.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Whoa!
I believe it's pronounced night vision. She just did her eyes. So.
She's not a dark elf.
Okay. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa.
This isn't Community. This is
Oh, while we're on the subject, did you know that in one of the lines, I did not expect this in the movie. So, in one of the dubbed over lines,
yeah.
that Harrison Ford came back for, they have him drop the N-bomb.
Really?
Yeah.
What?
I wasn't expecting it at all. So he's in the office with his officer, the guy who's in charge of the police force or whatever.
Yeah.
He's like, "We need you back, Deckard. Those skinwalkers are coming back." And he's just like, yeah, he calls them skinwalkers. Back in the day. Yeah, he dry hard R. Yeah, no, he's just like, because he relates it to calling them skinwalkers is the same as calling calling someone an N-word. So yeah, Harrison Ford drops an N-bomb in this in the theatrical version.
I mean,
director's cut doesn't have that.
never thought I'd hear Harrison Ford say it.
I know, dude. I was shocked. I was like, "Whoa, we're like 10 minutes in."
Whoa, we can't be saying this.
Exactly.
Ooh, I mean, okay, but to be fair, Django Unchained.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
true.
it's not like it's totally not used.
Foreign,
anymore.
yeah.
Yeah, like we
I
still
just
use it in
wasn't
modern
expecting
cinema.
it.
Wasn't expecting a sci-fi movie from the
Exactly.
80s. That's wild.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
absolutely insane.
Okay,
Anyway,
change.
I digress.
Hey, that's great. Not great, but
Starts like sweating. Oh, I mean, it's like,
it's a terrible thing.
man, if I've had a nickel for every time,
There have been racial undertones.
for the. Oh, it's getting hot in here. Woo.
How long is this podcast gonna last, man?
A couple other things. I thought the music's really cool.
I'll be honest, I didn't take any notes on the music.
That's fine. The music.
It's-
I'm not a sound engineer or anything
I'm not
like
either.
that.
It's mostly because like I feel so I know most of the music is made to kind of give this
It has a noir feel
vague
to it.
emptiness and noir sensation to
Yeah,
it. But like
I think it's played like all on a synthesizer.
I think it almost all is. But
Yeah.
like it all just is so it's minimally used. It comes in only at times when they're especially at times when they're flying through the city when they're showing what the world
They want the whole
is.
atmosphere of it.
They want you to understand what this world is and how it is. I didn't take enough mental notes or physical notes on it. But I know in 2049 they even add like the mufflers from like Honda Civics, like clapped out Honda Civics that are like they add that into the music because they want you to have this feeling of like this is what the world is. It's just common to have this kind of sound and noise mixed
Yeah.
into your just
This
daily
is
life.
part of the world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not a music major, but it sounds as if somebody took an old noir film, took music you would hear from that, like kind of jazzy, kind of like
Yeah,
uh,
light jazz,
not depressing, but like
macabre.
yeah,
a little bit.
macabre
Yeah.
kind of music, and put it through a synthesizer.
Yeah.
One other thing I really liked in the movie that I noticed was the sound design. So if I had a nickel for every time that Ridley Scott likes to use like some cool retro 80s tech for like some futuristic stuff, like when he's the scene where he's doing enlarging the photo.
Yeah.
That whole scene where it reminded me straight from Alien. The whole sound design is just like and
That's
I
Alien
love
right
that.
there,
I love
baby.
that stuff. So
Yeah. No, I'd agree. I'd agree. Any sort of user interface in Ridley Scott movies that are like sci-fi themed, it always feels the same, and I love it because it's just this chunky, ugly.
yes,
user.
exactly. Especially in this type of
Yeah,
world.
so good.
Yeah, and like I just love watching old movies and seeing what their idea of the future would be. And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this is the technology we have now. What is it going to be in the future? He kind of in Prometheus, there's like holograms and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's not, it just
Prometheus
doesn't have
didn't
that
live up to
feel.
it, yeah.
I love those large, bulky, noisy kind of like
Yeah.
there's all
Give-
these knobs
give me
and
the
buttons
industrial, it's
and then
made
the
to
sound of
survive.
it too, because when the holograms on it like has like a whoop kind of sound.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah.
But with all the like buttons and
Well, yeah,
knobs and
it's like using a keyboard from 1993.
Yeah.
Versus a keyboard on your laptop today.
Exactly.
Totally different feel, and that's something that I think they paid attention to, especially in Alien.
Yeah.
Is like they want that industrialized sensation of like this is made to withstand like a construction worker
Yeah.
bashing
exactly.
on it all day sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so like it's got to be that really chunky hardcore made to
Yeah.
last.
Exactly. And
Um,
it's just, and it also just adds to the world. It's just like you see how dirty it is. You can't see
Yeah.
if like cobwebs on a hologram.
Yeah,
But you can see the
exactly.
cobwebs and the fingerprints and
Dust.
the smudges and everything on a
Everything.
physical prop, and it just adds to it. It does. Plus you
So-
can light it in certain ways, and it's just.
So what you're saying is we're getting into the next topic.
So I imagine I was going to guess that because each one of us got to choose our own topic to talk about. I'm going to assume that yours is props. Yeah, exactly. For those of you who don't know, this guy makes props. He's very good at it as well.
So I work with like film props, commercial props. We do everything. I work for Raptor House FX here in Denver. Little shout out.
Check them out. They're very cool.
Check them out. Super awesome. We actually just wrapped up a really fun job. I didn't sign a waiver for it, so whatever. Woo! We do everything from like the thing from Wednesday Addams show. We actually made a robotic thing that can crawl around. We went and shot it in New York. I have like only 3 years of experience under my belt at this point. But the wealth of knowledge that I've learned in the prop making community has just been absolutely incredible. That being said,
This guy doesn't watch movies like the rest of us.
I don't
He
watch
sees-
movies.
He sees a prop and he goes, "How would you make that?"
I don't like to compare myself to many people.
Uh-huh.
But Adam Savage.
Oh, Adam Savage.
Adam
What
Savage.
an absolute
Yo,
our
Adam
Lord
Savage.
and Savior.
Adam Savage. If you see
Okay.
this, I will do anything for you. You say the word, and I will make anything. you
Harrison Ford, Ryan Gosling, and Adam Savage.
Yeah,
we
mostly
can all
Adam
just come
Savage.
over here and we can all just, I don't know, talk about stuff.
So, that being said, Adam Savage has this specific vision that, like, everything he watches, he doesn't watch it for the story. He's watching it for the storytelling. The things that aren't directly narrating, Deckard went and grabbed his gun. Adam's eyes specifically go to, like, what is the gun? What is the gun made of? What's the grip of the gun made
Yep.
of? Why is it made
It
of that?
speaks to the world and how it operates.
All these little tiny things that build the world
Mm-hmm.
around you, that do this storytelling. And going into that is a huge, like, movie making is already a huge world in and of its
collaborative
own.
process. Yeah.
Props triples that
Yeah.
at least. And God, I could go on for days talking about props from this movie. Also 2049, there's an amazing documentary on YouTube for both, of just all the behind scenes stuff.
Yeah, the miniatures that they use.
Miniatures that they
the
made.
little I mean, just on a technical level, this movie is insane.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So
Which is another. If I had a nickel for every time that Ridley Scott was able to make the most out of prop work or
Yes.
miniatures or whatever.
So that's one thing I appreciate about Ridley Scott is almost every one of his movies, he really heavily lays into physical props. It's always something with physical props he's got to have in it, which is really cool. 2049 has this incredible landscape that the entire city is made in miniature scale. It's like 700th scale, which is massive when you think about this, because the city police building is like a 15-foot tall miniature.
Jesus.
It's insanely huge. And what's really cool is back in the 80s, back in the 70s, back when like a movie like Star Wars was being shot, they were just on the cusp of figuring out how to get a motion controlled shot. That is where your camera is set up on a rig to do a specific motion through a miniature shot or through an environment, and you can repeat that shot. Now, what's really important about being able to repeat a shot over and over again is that you can overlay your shots. So let's say in one shot, we shoot all the buildings with all the lights on. The next shot, we shoot all the buildings in darkness. Next shot, we shoot all the buildings in daylight. Next shot, we fill everything with smoke, and we shoot that shot. We can then take all of those frames and lay them over each
overlay
other
it, yeah.
and get this incredibly dingy but bright lit and really bright LED
Make it
lights
as dynamic as you
and
can.
make it this incredible scene. And it's absolutely amazing. So Star Wars was one of the first films to really perfect that. They actually almost died in the water because of that, which is a whole
Insane.
nother
That's a
barrel
can of worms. Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing. Blade Runner used a mix of miniature sets, miniature vehicles, large scale sets. Obviously, the hotel is one. A scene that is actually really interesting to me, there's a story behind it, and it's kind of cool. When Pris is hiding in the garbage in the alley, and what's
the
his
wet
face?
newspapers, the toy maker
The
comes
toy
along.
maker comes along and he finds her. When she first jumps out of that garbage and like makes a beeline for the alley,
I know exactly what you're talking about.
she runs into this truck.
Yep,
and she actually chipped her elbow. The actress chipped her
Yeah,
elbow.
she's
and
got,
she
like, into
still,
9 pieces.
Still went through the whole scene,
Yeah.
shot the whole scene. They got it all, and it all came out beautifully. But that truck, the thing that she ran into, it's basically, I want to say it's an old Volkswagen, an old VW Beetle, that they took the body off, they fiberglass made these new bodies, and threw it onto the frame.
That is so much work.
Something that's really cool, that's just a weird coincidence, is that a guy that I know, because of the car that we've been working on, my family has an old Mustang that we've been working on for years.
It's sweet.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very happy with it. This guy that we found here in Colorado, his name is Wayne Saunders. He has an amazing portfolio, not just of like movie stuff, but also he worked for Rolls-Royce. He worked for Rolls-Royce and developed a way that the paint on the dash can look like wood. Like, it's not wood, it's not a veneer or anything like
just
that.
looks like it.
He just made a way to make it look like wood, like burl wood. So it's all knotted and curly
That's
and
cool.
everything.
That's
Absolutely
super
amazing.
cool.
This guy is incredibly talented, Wayne Saunders. So he was on the team that made all of the vehicles
In
for
Blade Runner.
Blade Runner.
That's fucking cool.
And so he was telling me, he showed me pictures. They had these molds, which a mold is something that usually when you're making 20,000 of one thing, you have to fill it up and you can reproduce as many as you need to out of this mold. They made a mold for this VW that is almost the size of this room. It's about a 15-foot long thing. And I think he said they had to make like 25 of them
It's fucking ridiculous.
just to fill in all these city shots. They made 25 of these vehicles. I'm sure all of them were like different styles
Yeah.
and stuff. 25 of them. Some of them were so big, they had to bust out another 1.5 feet above their garage door.
That's ridiculous.
In order
That's
to get these
so
fiberglass
funny.
shells out of the building. So just really cool little backstory.
Yeah.
That, you know, these guys are professionals. What we do, we are professionals. But even we do stuff that we're like, I don't know
I
how
hope
we're
it
gonna do
works.
that.
Yeah.
And the client is going to look at you and be like, I need to know that this is going to work. Otherwise, I'm going to come after you for millions of dollars, especially in today's world. And the people who are signing off for all this money to go to all these model makers and all these artists are sitting there going, yeah, absolutely. We've done this so many times. We know what we're doing. And then they go to the artists and they go, how the hell are we going to do this?
Yep.
And the artists go, I don't know, man. We'll fly by the seat of our pants. We'll figure
throw
it out, I guess.
together. That must have been a huge process in this movie, because yeah, there's some scenes where like you probably know how it's done. I can't tell if it's a miniature or not, but when that one police car comes to Deckard and it's flying and whatever,
Yeah.
and he's just like, "What are you doing here?" And he's like, "I'm arresting you" or whatever, and then he gives him his notification code or whatever, and then he flies off.
Yeah,
Just
yeah.
that one little
He goes,
scene
"Whee!"
where he flies off and there's
Yeah.
gas, and it was just like
That's a full scale prop.
that's freaking nuts.
So that's a full scale prop. It's really funny that you bring that up because I have a timestamp.
Oh my
for
God.
the director's cut.
This man's a professional.
Yeah, I took timestamp notes because I'm really interested by this. I gotta find where it was though. So at 10 minutes 23 seconds in the director's cut edition on Amazon Prime, because that's where I watched it.
There we go.
There's a speeder that is, I believe, one of the police speeders, and I think it's the same not miniature, full scale
yeah,
one
yeah.
as that one. You can see the wires on the front
I love it when you can see
on the
shit like
front
that.
two fenders, and you can see them in that shot too. But you see the wires because it's just sitting there. They had to have a crane
To just
that
pull
moved
it
this
up.
thing
Yeah.
around. So you see them at 10:23. Later on, you also see them. 59 minutes and 41 seconds. You also see it come in, and I believe that's that scene.
That's awesome.
As it's coming in, you can see it just kind of like angled down, and you just see these.
I was gonna
wires
see.
hanging from the
I
front
thought
of
I
it.
saw a wire.
It's really fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a mix of having to use these massive physical props and also trying to work in these miniatures. There's also a thing called matte paintings. I don't know if you've ever seen these.
Yes.
Like
yes.
Star Wars is
when
really
he
well known for
was
it.
on the not the roof yet, but he was hanging on the
balcony?
side of the building.
Yeah.
There's him, and I'm assuming they use some type of thing for a physical prop that be on. But then to the left of the screen, I noticed it was like that's a matte painting.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
they're really cool. Matte paintings
Yeah.
are cool. They don't really use them that much anymore. They use green screen
Yeah,
or blue
it's
screen or
primarily
whatever.
green screens, like all the Avengers shots whenever they're hanging
Yeah.
off a cliff or an edge or something like that.
But I did notice that. I can spot a matte painting pretty well.
Yeah, usually, and you'll usually notice it if it's kind of a slightly dulled shot.
Mm-hmm.
That's usually how you can kind of eyeball that. At 36 minutes and 58 seconds, there is that matte painting where Deckard is walking out to his patio or his balcony and kind of looking out over
Yeah,
the city.
yeah.
And I think it's after he's beat to crap by Leon.
Yep. Yes.
And he's looking out over the city. That whole thing is a matte painting, except
cool.
for his little unit, and then I think some of the street where they have lights going back and forth.
And then, do you know? And this is just a question for curiosity. In the beginning of the movie, there's, that hover car, and it's just passing by the city, and there's all these lights and the fire things. I noticed the fire effects were like post. They're
pretty dated.
Yeah, they're pretty dated.
Yeah,
but for those lights, was that a miniature prop that they were kind of going over, and that each one had like a little individual light?
Yeah, so that's all microfiber.
Okay.
That's fiber optic cable. Usually, modern days we would use fiber optics and LEDs. A lot of the times back in like the 70s, 80s, even 60s, they would have just essentially like taking a box and putting it over your light bulb and then just poking holes into the box. All those little dots of light that you see are just holes
That's cool.
in the model. And so that's one way to do like a really cheap LED effect or a light effect on a model, is doing that sort of thing. And I mean, we do that all the time still.
That's cool.
Depending on what you're making. Gosh, I have too many. Yeah, 11 minutes, 20 seconds. That's a full miniature set piece. All the wires that you see on the speeders are just really fun to see.
I love seeing like little things like that.
It's really nice.
Because in the modern day, like, it's usually on streaming service, so they'll, even if they made a mistake, they'll be able
to smudge
digitize it or whatever.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
exactly.
I love seeing those old like dated things. Because I mean, yeah, if you notice it, it's like, okay, cool, but it's like in the old Star Wars. This is a little bit of a digression. I'll go back to it, but it's like in The Empire Strikes Back, that little pole they use to make the at Walker fall down.
Oh yeah.
You notice that it's nice. It's charming.
Yeah, and those were probably miniatures, maybe a foot and a half, 2 feet tall.
I enjoy seeing those compared, because
it's-
everything nowadays is just it's perfect.
Yes, yeah, and it's too perfect nowadays.
Exactly.
Like Avatar is just too much perfect.
Yeah.
And it's the little imperfections, the movie magic that makes a movie.
You can tell a lot of passion
special.
went into it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a huge advocate for getting away from CGI and stuff.
Yeah.
Not only because that's my career, but also because it genuinely just brings a magic to film that CGI just can't quite.
Yeah, I believe
yet.
if you use CGI with practical, you can have
Absolutely.
good results. But just CGI it's hard to do and make it convincing at the same time.
Yeah.
But anyway, so do you have any other props you'd like to talk about?
I mean, I could go on all day, but
It's hot.
is what it is.
I was gonna say my last subject I chose, and I just chose as an umbrella term, is the atmosphere of the movie.
Yeah.
I love the lighting, the look, the smoke, just everything. How it's always raining.
Yep.
There's a lot of atmosphere in this movie, and for me, it's one of the top reason that this movie is sold to me. If this movie didn't look as good as it did, I think I might be a little, waxing waning on the concept.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just so, you're just entrenched in this world that is sold to you, and it's I love it. I don't know if it started the kind of cyberpunk genre kind of
bit.
thing, but like, because this is based off of a book that has a awful title. It's like, Do Androids Dream of Cyber Sheep or something like that. But when you read the book, you have to imagine these things. So for a filmmaker to take it and just be like, this is how it looks, and to put all that heart and soul
Right.
into it,
Right.
it really sells the world, and you just have to just sit in it and live in it. I love it. So it kind of started that trend of cyberpunk noir future kind of thing. Everything, like we were saying before, all the props and everything, all the streets, everything you've seen is just so lived in. I love that. The shadows, the reflections, the contrast between different rooms, like the hotel, the streets, Deckard's apartment, which is super lived in. It seems like a place someone has been in for years, versus Tyrell's room.
Yes.
It's all the ethereal water stuff in the background.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But some things I think that add to the atmosphere, that was one of my themes, was the delusion, there's like a lot of delusion in this film. And what I mean by that is like, everything's just so mixed in together. So like a couple of examples is like one of the first things they do with when that one detective goes to find Deckard is he's speaking to him in a different language. And Deckard can understand him, but he doesn't want to respond. And so like, and in the narration, I don't know if this is in the director's cut, but he says it's like a mix between Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, like all these mangled up languages all put in together. He's like, if you're a good cop, you'll know how to decipher that. But it's one thing where they just take these languages and it's part of the world. They just mix it all in. And then they do that with religions. You see different like monks, different types of religion just walking through the street. And it's all just jumbled all together. The lights, I noticed a lot of lights. There's obviously a lot of neon lights throughout the movie, especially in the streets, but they're usually contrasted. Is it contrasted or is it contrasted?
Contrasted.
Whichever one. But there's a lot of fire in the movie too. And it's kind of the same thing between artificial and natural kind of light. So there's a lot of mixture and that kind of stuff. Plus it just adds to the look of the movie. They do it with just like everything. Even some of the themes like memories, what's real, what's not, humans, who's human, who's not. Like it's just such a huge like mixed bag. And I love all of that because one, it adds to the world, but I think one of the last lines in the movie really encapsulates that idea is that all those memories will be lost like tears in the rain. You're just all mixing it together and it's just this jumbled up mess of a thing. And it just adds so much atmosphere and I love it. It's good.
It's cool because even that scene where the police car comes in, like checks on Deckard and Deckard gives him the ID number and all that. That scene where like all the gangsters are like coming up behind him to steal from his car. They're speaking a mix of like German and like I couldn't even tell you what, but I immediately caught on to some German.
They like mixing. I don't know if they actually like mixed different languages together for the dialogue or whatever, but there's that. Even in a lot of the scenes when Deckard's running through the streets, a lot of people are wearing like these helmets that make them look like a robot. And so like, and they're on like bicycles and stuff like that. And so it's just like there's just so much of like you have to have a sharp eye to kind of live in this world, and you have to like get through the delusion. But then kind of at the end of the movie, it's like, does it really matter, or is it just we're all in this together? Because even the setting of the movie is like, I mean, there's always that blimp in the sky that promises another life, like a better life.
Which, if you've seen South Park and you've wondered why there's this whole thing with a tower and the blimp in the COVID special, I think it is. That's where it's from. It's from Blade Runner. It's not a Matt and Trey Parker thing, just being silly, haha, funny.
It's a reference.
Japanese racism. No, it's from Blade Runner. And it's a really cool reference. I like that.
But it promises, like, I mean, this is just what's left of Earth. Everyone who's rich and powerful has left Earth behind.
They're off on their own island on another planet.
And this is all that remains, and it all mixed together. And
These are the poor.
Exactly.
These are the poor people. The rich people are off-world. They've dedicated a whole world to this upper class.
Exactly.
You're living in this mess that is the lower class. That we're all just
the only higher class that is willing to stay is the one that profits from it and wants to do experiments. And so it's just like, it's a very interesting world.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's good stuff.
It's good atmosphere.
Yeah, that was my last subject. What is it? Jordan Cronswith. I don't know if I pronounced your name right. You were the director of photography. Good job.
Good job.
That's it. I just wanted to give you some credit. I don't know.
Still alive?
Yeah. Oh, actually, fun fact. Maybe, I don't know, but okay. Apparently, during the production of this, during the last couple of weeks, he had really bad Parkinson's, and he had to be reduced to a wheelchair. But Ridley Scott, even though the producers were like, you can't have a guy in a wheelchair, you know, this is going to hold up production and whatever, Ridley Scott was like, no, like, this guy's good. He knows what he's doing. He's staying on during the whole time.
Good for him.
So, yeah, that's
for
good.
him.
It is
That's
good.
awesome.
I hope you're in well health. I don't know. I just know that one fact about you and that you did this. So
Hopefully the Parkinson's hasn't gotten you yet.
yes.
Or maybe, hopefully it has. On that note,
Anyway. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. Any other things you want to talk about with this Goliath of a movie? Because this is one of those movies that, like, I mean, everybody knows it.
Yeah,
Even if you
everybody-
haven't seen it, you've seen the influence of
yeah,
it.
you know of it. You know the influence
Yeah.
it has. Watch 2049.
Yeah, I'll get to it.
If
we
you
can watch
haven't
it
seen,
tonight, I don't
if
know.
you haven't seen 2049, watch 2049 and watch Blade Runner. Do it.
Both are good watches.
Both are great watches.
Yeah.
Fantastic watches. And they're cinema history. They're
Yeah.
they're a big part of cinema history. Like, whether you want to be a film major or a prop maker,
Or if you just
Or-
like film.
you just like film, it's worth watching. It's a huge staple.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
You absolute incredible
Thank
man.
you for having me.
Yeah, anytime.